Mario Kart World joins a storied history of Nintendo-developed games available on launch day of a brand new console or handheld, many of which went on to become some of the most cherished and respected games in video game history. But which were the best first-party Nintendo games to ever launch on a new Nintendo system? Well, this is sort of like making your favorite childhood memories fight, but hey, we're up for the challenge if you are. But enough talk, let's get to the fun stuff. Here are the 10 best Nintendo launch games of all time.
Hello?
As a little purple box with an adorable purse handle that launched with a game featuring a Mario brother who couldn't jump, the GameCube was a weird and wonderful creative swing from Nintendo. Luigi's Mansion was the first solo game for Mario's pluckier, lankier brother, opting to do something completely different by giving him a vacuum cleaner that hunts ghosts in a big house that he won in a contest. Wait, what? Okay, so on paper, everything about Luigi's Mansion is utterly bizarre, especially as the flagship launch title for the GameCube, but once players started moving Luigi around with the GameCube controller, a dual analog candy-colored input device with pressure-sensitive shoulder buttons, things made sense immediately. Well, mostly. Luigi could explore each room at his own pace, sucking up coins, dollars, and spooky cartoon ghosts as players used the left stick to move him around and the right stick and shoulder buttons to trap silly phantasms, Ghostbusters style.
Mommy.
And while twin-stick controller games don't seem particularly novel in this modern era, this was a first for Nintendo in 2001. More importantly though, Luigi's Mansion was the first game to truly give Luigi his own personality traits, instead of just making him a taller, palette-swapped version of his far more famous brother. As Luigi tiptoes around the mansion, he gets increasingly paranoid, ranging from mumbling, incoherent, vaguely Italian psychobabble to full-on screaming in panic. A stark contrast to Mario's heroic and confident wahoos and let's-a-goes. Luigi's Mansion led to increasingly better sequels, a full-on Nintendo 3DS remake, and a spooky mansion-themed stage in Mario Kart and Smash Bros. Luigi's hilariously scaredy-cat personality, first seen in Luigi's Mansion, has become a permanent staple for him, featuring in the majority of his appearances since, most notably when it was perfectly brought to life by It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia actor Charlie Day in the 2023 Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Welcome to Nintendo Land.
While the Nintendo Wii U ended up being Nintendo's least successful home console by pretty much every metric, that didn't mean it didn't get a ton of great games, most of which went on to become huge hits when they eventually got ported to the much more popular Nintendo Switch. Nintendo didn't really do a great job explaining to people that the Wii U wasn't a peripheral for the original Nintendo Wii, but rather a brand new standalone console needed to play exclusive games, and launch games like New Super Mario Bros. U, a sequel to the Nintendo Wii New Super Mario Bros. Game that only added a single letter and some meager and forgettable Wii U gamepad support, didn't really do a great job of explaining why you needed a Wii U either, so it's not that hard to see why the average customer passed on the system. The launch lineup did have something significantly more innovative though, Nintendo Land, which demonstrated exactly how the Wii U gamepad could be used for fun and unique gameplay possibilities in ways that New Super Mario Bros. U couldn't. Nintendo Land was a freebie launch game that gave us a playable glimpse of what a Nintendo theme park could look like 9 years before Nintendo and Universal joined forces. By navigating a hub world, players could access a dozen different single and multiplayer games, all showcasing the gamepad peripheral's potential in various clever ways. Animal Crossing Sweet Day allowed multiple players to battle for candy collecting supremacy by stabbing each other with comically oversized cutlery, while a player on the gamepad played as dog police officers Copper and Booker, attempting to grab them. The Mario Chase minigame reverses this concept, turning the players against the gamepad holder, and things get even funnier and more chaotic. There was even a multiplayer game called Metroid Blast, easily the best Metroid game with the word blast in the title, shockingly there's more than one of those, and a competitive Legend of Zelda game where the gamepad player fires first-person arrows at their friends. Obviously, Nintendo Land wasn't enough to save the Wii U, but it established its place as one of the best and most unique games on the console. And though it never made its way to Nintendo Switch, you can probably thank it for planting the seeds for the actual Nintendo theme parks that we get to explore in real life now.
You are the new champion of Nintendo Land. I hope you're ready to party.
The Nintendo 3DS's first-party launch library wasn't Nintendo's greatest. Once players got past the first hurdle of the little 3D handheld sticker's shocking launch price, which ended up getting a hefty price cut months later, they were left with games like Pilot Wings 3D and Steel Diver, games that made good use of the system's features, but nothing really revolutionary. But preloaded on every 3DS was one of the system's most definitive features, one that benefited greatly from its pocket portability. Nintendo StreetPass, specifically StreetPass Mii Plaza, isn't exactly a game as much as it's a collection, one that only increased and improved as the 3DS system lifespan went on. By passing by or interacting with other 3DS players walking around in the wild, their user data would visit your system in Nintendo Mii form, bringing gifts and becoming a playable character to compete in a library of mini-games. StreetPass was an ingenious concept that rewarded you for doing something you were already doing, taking your 3DS with you when you went places, and seeing your system light up with a StreetPass notification was one of the most delightful feelings Nintendo has ever delivered. The 3DS StreetPass Mii Plaza app, long name, was best known for its puzzle swap game as well as its Find Mii bite-sized RPG, and occasionally got updated with additional minigames centered around things like cooking, gardening, slot car racing, and zombie battling. StreetPass was so cherished that nostalgic players still talk about it today, frequently begging Nintendo to add the feature to Switch or Switch 2. Yeah, Nintendo, do it! If we all promise to bring our 3DS systems everywhere we go, we can keep that StreetPass magic alive forever. When the Nintendo Wii launched in 2006, the only game on Nintendo's fans' minds was The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. Sure, it had been in development as a GameCube game for years, but who cared? The Wii version featured motion-controlled sword slashing, pointer-controlled arrow aiming, and a Wii remote that actually talked to you. All we wanted to do was play Twilight Princess, and after hours of waiting for our grandparents to get tired of playing Wii bowling, it was time to take on the role of the legendary hero of Hyrule, like we never had before. Twilight Princess was a massive, sprawling game that put the Zelda franchise on a scale and scope it had never seen before. It was the first time a Nintendo console launched with a brand new Zelda game. Nintendo Wii owners could now play as Link on launch day, just as soon as they got through that annoying goat-herding minigame. The sword slashing, while rudimentary, was still satisfying even dozens of hours in, and hearing Midna speak to you through your controller added a level of immersion not previously experienced in a Zelda game. Link's design became a staple for Nintendo, making his way into official key art, amiibo toys, and Smash Bros. Games for years to come. If you weren't around when it happened, it's kind of hard to explain how big of a leap Super Mario World was compared to the trilogy of NES games that preceded it. Vibrant 16-bit graphics, Mode 7 visual effects that allowed enemies and boss sprites to rotate and shrink and grow, an incredible MIDI orchestrated soundtrack, a new spin jump, a cape feather power-up, and dozens of huge, gorgeous levels with hidden exits that opened up secret worlds. You just had to be there. The Super Nintendo launch also featured the Nintendo-published futuristic racing game F-Zero, an awesome visual showcase and great game in its own right, but Super Mario World easily takes the lead here. Even though it was a pack-in game, Super Mario World went on to become one of the most beloved Super Nintendo games and also just really good leverage for kids trying to convince their parents to buy them a console that already came with a free game. Unlike the original NES game, which was downright revolutionary, Super Mario World felt more like a maturation and refinement of every platforming game that came before it. It also introduced Yoshi for the first time, an adorable and charismatic dinosaur mount that went on to star in plenty of great games of his own. If you also need more proof that this game's legacy lives on, Super Mario World is the title for the Super Mario movie sequel releasing next year, and if you just can't wait for that, you can build the recently released interactive Lego set based on Mario and Yoshi's 16-bit debut on the Super Nintendo. Every now and then, a video game breaks through and reaches a whole new stratosphere of people who had never even thought they'd be addicted to a video game. Tetris is not just one of those games, it's arguably the game. When Tetris launched in 1989 on the original Game Boy, Nintendo's first dedicated handheld with a swappable cartridge, AA batteries all over the planet wept in fear. Millions and millions of Game Boys flew off the shelves, and while the other launch day offerings like Super Mario Land, Baseball, Alleyway, and Tennis were solid, shrunk-down versions of popular NES games, It was Nintendo's stake on Alexei Pajitnov's addictive block-dropping puzzle game that truly was synonymous with the system. Well, at least until the first Pokemon games launched 7 years later. Tetris played to the Game Boy's strengths and weaknesses. It was packed in with every Game Boy at launch, giving people immediate and portable access. It didn't require flashy graphics or color-coordinated elements. It was simply about fitting blocks together in clever ways, making the Game Boy's fuzzy puke green screen something that couldn't hold it back in the slightest. Tetris was a global obsession, capturing the attention spans of kids and adults alike for hours and hours a day, leading to the medical shorthand term Tetris effect for people who played the game too long and claimed to see falling blocks in their thoughts. It also became the title of the incredible 2018 reimagining of Tetris, funnily enough, just one of the hundreds of versions of Tetris that have been created and sold officially and unofficially over the years. Tetris is one of those games that people who don't play video games can explain to you, part of the pop culture fabric that defines our species. It takes something truly special for that to happen, and it's all because it was a launch game on the original Game Boy.
Game Boy comes complete with batteries and the outrageous new game Tetris. And for head-to-head competition, use Video Link and blow your opponent away.
Super Mario Bros. Effectively invented the platforming genre as we know it. With just a run and a jump button, along with another Nintendo invention, the directional pad, players had a level of control and freedom not seen in games before, thanks largely in part to its revolutionary and first of its kind scrolling level design. Super Mario Bros. Introduced the world to the Super Mario that we still know and love today, along with Bowser, Princess Peach, Goombas, Koopas, and many other iconic video game characters. Super Mario Bros.' simple but hard to master design philosophy effectively taught people how to play platforming games for the first time. As soon as the game began and players started walking, they came face to face with a Goomba, and if they walked into it, they died. So they learned to push a button and jump over it, and generations of muscle memory were formed. Decades later, World 1-1 is one of the most instantly recognizable video game levels ever conceived. Super Mario Bros. On the NES is largely cited as being responsible for resurrecting the industry after the fabled video game crash of 1983, meaning you can argue that every other game on this list wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for this one. Is it a better 2D Mario game than Super Mario World? Well, that's up for you to debate, but it's undeniably more important.
15 Love.
Nobody could have possibly predicted that the unassuming baby blue disc, tucked amongst the wires and packaging of the Nintendo Wii console, would go on to become one of the most successful Nintendo games of all time, especially considering it was not only a sports game, something Nintendo wasn't exactly famous for, but a sports game with zero official licensing from any actual sports leagues. Well, maybe one person could have predicted it.
My body is ready.
Former Nintendo president Reggie Fils-Aimé, who famously pressured Nintendo to make sure Wii Sports was a free pack-in title when the innovative motion-controlled console launched in 2006. Wii Sports was an absolute monster, a cultural juggernaut, and a massive breakthrough for Nintendo's blue ocean strategy of reaching both lapsed gamers and people who had never even played a video game before. Once people got a Wii remote in their hands and threw their arm backwards to simulate rolling a bowling ball, they were completely hooked, assuming they didn't launch the controller into their ceilings or televisions first. Some of you did. I've seen the pictures.
I'm getting ready to serve. All I do is throw that ball up in the air, and oh, jeez. And there goes the tennis racket.
Wii Sports took over college dorms, kids' birthday parties, and retirement homes everywhere. Millions of people who didn't traditionally sit down and press buttons on a video game controller stood up to simulate goofy but utterly endearing versions of tennis, baseball, bowling, and more. All complete with their own little custom-designed Mii avatars. It not only caused dozens of video game publishers to chase the trend with their own Nintendo Wii motion-controlled games, it also inspired Nintendo's direct competitors, PlayStation and Xbox, to quickly pivot internal strategies and fast-track their own motion-controlled video games, resulting in PlayStation Move and the Xbox Kinect, two valiant efforts that ultimately couldn't compete with Nintendo's motion-controlled dominance.
You ever wonder what the bottom of an Avatar shoe looks like? Well, bam! There it is.
Meanwhile, Nintendo's motion controls live on in Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2, Joy-Con controllers, along with the hit game Nintendo Switch Sports that has gone on to sell over 16 million copies, but none of this happens without that beautiful blue pack-in disc that started it all.
Here we go!
Super Mario 64 quite literally changed the way we play video games forever. As Nintendo's first 3D platforming game available on day one on the Nintendo 64, Nintendo's first 3D capable console, complete with its wonderfully weird Bowser Claw-shaped controller, controlling characters in a 3D space was never the same again. Once Mario jumped out of the warp pipe into the Mushroom Kingdom courtyard, a big open playground that led to a castle brimming with opportunity and challenge, players realized pushing the joystick just a bit could make Mario tiptoe, pushing it a lot could make him run, and an entire new dimension of possibility had arrived. Gamers old enough to play Super Mario 64 when it launched have been chasing that high ever since, constantly looking for the next Super Mario 64 moment, a phrase synonymous with a new video game experience that raises the bar so far above everything ever came before it that things are never the same again. While many classic two-dimensional video game franchises had struggled to make the jump to 3D in the 90s, Super Mario 64 jumped in headfirst and set all the rules. Mario's incredible moveset created a seemingly endless number of ways to tackle each level, and the Mario 64 speedrunning community is still finding clever ways to shave seconds off of their completion times nearly 3 decades later. Super Mario 64 remains one of the deepest and most revolutionary Nintendo console launch games of all time, and it's still incredibly fun today.
Open your eyes. Wake up, Link.
You knew it was coming. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a masterpiece and a triumph in open-world game design, but more importantly, altered the path of both the Zelda series and Nintendo's hardware philosophy for years to come. After The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, the Zelda franchise's previously successful formula was starting to see diminishing returns, and both Nintendo's console and handheld hardware divisions were in desperate need of a refresh. Breath of the Wild, a launch title for Nintendo's new hybrid console, the Nintendo Switch, gave players a massive open-world Zelda game they could carry with them anywhere and approach in any way they wished, allowing them to travel everywhere in real life while they did the same in Hyrule. Discovering intimate secrets while hunched over a little portable device or coming home, docking your Switch, and experiencing grand epic triumphs played out on your largest TV proved that the Nintendo Switch could do it all. Sure, a few Zelda series staples like dungeons and dungeon-specific weapons got a bit lost in the shuffle, but the sacrifices were largely worth it for the biggest and most inspired Zelda game the world had seen yet, and one that helped cement the Nintendo Switch as one of the most successful video game systems ever made. It led to the even more ambitious Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and will surely lay the groundwork for the next installment of the Legend of Zelda franchise, sure to arrive on Nintendo Switch 2 at some point in our lives, a system that wouldn't even exist if it not for the original Nintendo Switch having one of the greatest games of all time available on launch day. So, what was your favorite Nintendo launch game of all time? Did we miss anything you loved? Let us know in the comments below. Making this list made us realize that although some Nintendo systems like the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS went on to have some of the most cherished game libraries in their history, their launch day offerings from Nintendo were less than stellar, focusing instead on ports and remakes of previous Nintendo classics. Sometimes a system's collection of launch games define it forever, for better or worse, while other times it simply acts as a starting point to be built on for years to come. Either way, thanks for celebrating the best Nintendo launch games of all time with us right here, and for all things video games, stick with IGN.